Oh. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Purposeful Wisdom Podcast. My name is Dawn Christine. Welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I love to see all your beautiful souls back here. Please remember to like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate all the support and the love that you guys are showing me. As you know, this is a healing platform for those of you who are looking for guidance and wisdom and just overall well-being. I have the privilege of talking with some amazing professionals in their respective fields. And I want to provide you guys with as many resources as possible to help assist you on your healing journey. And without further ado, I am super excited for today's guest. I have the privilege of speaking to Ms. Valerie J Walsh. Valerie is a best-selling author of books about love and loss. Her most recent memoir is called Shattered to the Core. She is a nationally certified fitness trainer and mental health advocate. Through inspirational storytelling, audiences connect with her down-to-earth approach and honesty. And by sharing her personal story of resilience and transformation, Valerie leaves people feeling not only hopeful, but also motivated to go after the peaceful and purposeful life they deserve. Welcome,
Yeah.
Valerie. Thank you so much for being
Wow.
here.
Dawn, I am so happy to be here and thank you very, very much. I'm super impressed. That was a mouthful. Like, that's me. Are you sure?
That's you, girl. That's you. Embrace that, right?
I am noticing your necklace because we're on Zoom here together. Is that a feather?
No, it's crystal.
Okay, because my eyes went there because feathers, like, and it's beautiful. I love it. Feathers are
Thank
like my
you.
symbol. I love feathers. And
I saw that on your book cover. I was like, this is beautiful. Like, it's so simple, but it says so much because feathers are symbolic. And
oh
that
yeah.
just alone is that, and I love your last sentence in your bio, peaceful and purposeful. Because
Yeah.
I think down to the core, and we'll go there in a sec, that's what most people want in their lives, peace and purpose. Those go hand in hand. So I love that you embrace that and share that gift with other people. So I love
Well,
that.
I'll tell you a little bit about the feather. We'll start there. It's interesting,
Yeah.
and it's a really like unshameful segue into just showing this
Oh,
beautiful
yes,
cover, right?
please.
So,
Yes.
because I am an indie author, and I remember when I got the cover design, and then what they do is because I this was all brand new to me before I became a published author. The last time I remember writing was when I was like in junior high in my diaries. Okay, so
Right.
anyways, so when you get your author copy, you do the whole unboxing thing, right? And you put it
Uh-huh.
on TikTok or YouTube or whatever platform. So I get it, and like a dork, I open it up and I was like feeling it, like, ooh, it's the because aesthetically, Elizabeth Kingsbury, who designed my cover, did such a beautiful job. And all I told her, because we did everything via Zoom as well, because this was all coming out in the heart of COVID, is when I was actually working on the book and we were all
Right.
quarantined. So anyhow, feathers is my grandmother's maiden name. And when my mom had passed away, which I know we're going to talk about on your show, I kept finding feathers. Like, you know, I wasn't going out and looking for them. And one time, and it happened to be actually my mother's birthday, it was like a year after her passing. I was running on a trail and I came across all these feathers at my feet. And then I was telling my friend about it, and she said, there's a Native American saying that says, when feathers appear, angels are near. And I quote that from
Right.
Shattered to the Core. And it's just beautiful. But the comical part is, I'm like, while I like to believe that, and I do, and I collect feathers, but they have to find me. I can't find them. The truth
Right.
is, I looked up, and there was a huge nest above me. So, frankly, probably a bird didn't survive that day, and I got some beautiful feathers from it. I was like, I'll take that, right? Because when we're in pain, sometimes we're just looking, right? We're
We
looking for
are.
peace, and that was the day I was looking for peace, and I took that as a really good sign.
Absolutely. And nothing, nothing in life is a coincidence, I feel either, and a lot of people have these beliefs to help their healing journey. I know for me, it's synchronicity numbers. Like every time I see synchronicity, I think my dad's around,
Yeah.
so it's all these little things that just help us have peace in our hearts and know that our loved ones are near because they are. We know
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and it's comforting for people. So I think nothing happens by coincidence. Yeah, there might be a bird up there somewhere, probably, but there's a level of comfort that goes along with that,
Oh, 100%. 100%, but anyhow, yeah, thank you so much for having me on your show. I mean, I just really, I was looking a little bit about what you do, and I love the fact that you bring professionals together and storytellers like me together to just frankly talk about what we've gone through and where we are today, because that's what helped me. Our stories are super powerful, and
Yes, they
they don't
are.
always have to be written in a book. They could be, just sitting with a friend having a cup of coffee and sharing what you're going through and what helped you, because you might be able to help somebody else. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. That's why this podcast exists, because I have been so passionate in my own healing journey to help inspire others. And I know I can't do it alone, right? Because it's, if I was to come on here and just talk for hours about no, it's sharing knowledge. It's bringing professionals on that can not only teach me, but teach my audience and different perspectives and different ways to view things. And to me, everything works. Like, I want to bring as much content to my viewers as possible. So thank you. I'm honored to be able to give you this platform to share your wisdom and knowledge with my growing audience. So thank you so much.
So I can hear you perfectly, Dawn. You're a little bit frozen, so I don't know if you can see me still. So hopefully,
I can. I
all right.
can, and on my end, everything's working. So and again, there's been episodes I've recorded where my cat's knocked down my light and I'm still going. I'm like, this
Right.
is so raw and real. This is real life, people. So if it glitches, it glitches. We're still here. We're going to keep going. I'd love to get into everything about your book, because the title alone shattered to the core. When I first heard that, I was like, oh, like, I feel that, and I'm an empath. Please explain to my audience how you came up with that title and where the term courageous comes into play into this book.
I love that you just asked that, because so the logistics of how you publish a book could be a whole different show, right? So how I began writing was, let me just create some street creds, if you will.
Of
It's been
course.
10 years since my mother died, and she died in 2013. She died by suicide. And the reason why I say that in that language is because it's also an opportunity for me to share what was taught to me. And when I first started writing the manuscript, Shattered to the Core, I had written committed suicide. And then I had a proofreader who was in the mental health field read some of the excerpts from the manuscript. And she said, "Oh, Valerie, I know that one of the things you want to do is use your story as a calling card to volunteer in mental health advocacy. Please know that we don't use that terminology, committed suicide, because if you really do believe, which I do, that mental illness is an illness, that would be like saying somebody that died from cancer committed cancer. Oh, she committed cancer when she died." So
Right.
I went through my manuscript and I did like a whole Google search of how many times I use that. I'm like, oh no, I have to change it all. So, when we know better, we do better. So now I share that bit of wisdom, because when I thought of it that way, when I do hear it that way now, it makes me pause. Like, ooh, no, they died by suicide. And that is how my mother passed away in 2013. So how I began writing was shortly after that. I'm a thyroid cancer survivor. For 2002, I
Wow.
had my thyroid removed. And the reason I share that is because when I went for my health appointments, I was turning 40 at the time. One of those appointments was to have your mammogram, and I had an ultrasound because I have dense breast tissue. And in my breast tissue, they showed abnormal formations of cells. And then with that, they did a biopsy and they discovered I had something called lobular carcinoma in situ, LCIS, which is a precursor to possible breast cancer. Now, at the time, I had just, I barely, we had just buried my mom. And now I had this like health scare looming over me. And I was spiraling. Like I was spiraling into an acute depression and lots of anxiety. And what I didn't know, what I know now is I was in survival mode. Like I was just getting by.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, what do I need to do to get past this? Like I can't have this on my plate too. Like, what do I need to do? So I made the decision after biopsies and lumpectomies and and I intellectually weighed my options and I had a girlfriend come with me to, when I do recommend when you're going through a health scare to have somebody there to hear what you can't hear, because I know
Right.
sometimes it's like the teacher in Charlie Brown, you're like, wah, 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 and
Right. You
you're
just
going
block everything out. Right.
tunnel vision. So I wanted to make sure that I had a support system. I did. And then I decided to do a preventative bilateral mastectomy with construction. So, reconstruction, construction. Can you imagine? I'm like, yeah, say construction, reconstruction.
I understood what you were saying, though. I did.
um, uh, I began journaling medically only, medically because I knew, because I'd gone through thyroid stuff and people would ask me, I became in my local community like the poster girl for thyroid cancer. And people would always ask me questions. I'm like, you know what? I can't remember. It's been so long, right? It's been 20 years.
Right.
So I knew with this, I was like, I want to take notes, because if I have to answer questions for another person going through this, I want to at least be able to be like, okay, I took notes. This is what this doctor appointment looked like for me. This is what I did next. This is who I saw for consultation. So with that, what became just medical notes, I found myself journaling, not having my mom there, because my mom was there during my thyroid cancer diagnosis and my surgeries and my recovery. Because at that time, my daughter was a year and a half and she wasn't there for this. And she had just died. And I didn't even have a chance to breathe and recover from that. And I was getting through this major, and it's a major surgery that for a woman, again, that could be a whole nother show, what it's like to go through a double mastectomy and not have my mom there to go through that. So I was journaling these deep emotions, and so that was 2014. Didn't do anything with it. Didn't do a thing with it. And then during my medical scare, I hadn't been drinking at all. I just, because that's the type of functioning alcoholic I am, and I am in recovery. I'm just under 6 years sober now from alcohol.
Beautiful. Congratulations. That's
You're
amazing.
Thank you. So, and that's important piece of how this book came to be. So in 2020, when we were all quarantined and I wasn't really working as much, I don't even know how, but somehow I think it was on my phone or something. I started finding all these journals because they were in my phone, they were on paper, they were on my computer. And I'm like, I think that I have something here. And I had 3 years of sobriety under my belt by that time. So I had, a strong enough foundation where I had the tools of my recovery program, some perspective, some healthy perspective, some time healing my heart and my soul, my core, which we'll, talk about. So I decided to piece together a manuscript. And and to answer your question, how the title became Shattered to the Core, that wasn't the first title. So what I learned was not to get married to the title when you're going to self-publish, or even if you get picked up by a publisher. And what I did was I did a hybrid self-publishing. So I actually hired a company to kind of walk me through the steps, because I really didn't know anything about what it would take to publish a book. So I got some assistance with that, and we were all in on a meeting. And the first title of the book was actually called Dusting Off My Soul.
Wow.
And the original company I worked with, a guy named Gary Krebs, fantastic GMK publication, he said, do me a favor, Google dusting, just put that word in. And all these cleaning products came up, and I didn't know anything about, the algorithm of, what a reader might search when they're looking for a new read. And he's like, how do you want to attract readers? And how did you feel? And everybody on the meeting kept like having me dig deep. Like, what did you feel? I'm like, well, CORE was always something I worked with as an acronym for as a trainer, and I was I was shattered. I was shattered, and it was like one of those things. I'm like, that's what it is right there. Like I was shattered, and
Right.
I had to rebuild my soul because my soul was absolutely shattered. So that's how that became that word right there, and then CORE we'll get into in a bit.
Oh, love that. I love that. And there's just so many beautiful things that just, it was like a domino effect. Like all this beautiful stuff came out of 3 years, even more so, of journaling your life and how that turned into something very beautiful for you. And so, what is courageous? Because I'm so curious about this term, and I love the way you break this down.
So I'm really excited to announce that I'm going to be launching a second book. And that title, and that'll be launched in January 2024, and that's the title of my second book. So when readers read Shattered to the Core, it's a memoir of that really hard time of my life, right? We all have like
Right.
the universe likes to deliver it all at once sometimes, right? And that's what was happening during like 2013 to like 2016, 17 were the some of the darkest years, and I hope the only dark years that I'm going to have. But
Right.
they got a better foundation to handle life on life's terms now. But anyhow, the readers kind of left off like, okay, you wrote about this time, and yeah, flash forward, boom, you're healed. Well, where are you now? And what are the tools that you use every day to get there? And what CORE used to stand for, because I have over 25 years as a personal trainer and fitness coach, I used to use it, CORE, to break down my clients' training goals. A lot of times those were running goals. I was like your local community. If you wanted to, train for a 5K or your first half marathon, I I coached a group called CORE Running Community. And the acronym stood for your challenge, usually being the race you're going to train for. O would be the obstacles in your way, like your job, whatever duties that you have outside of your training. What are those obstacles going to be? Your R is always your reason, your why, and the E was your exercise you're going to use, your exercise plan. So we would write that
Right.
out. Flash forward to where we are now, and more of a mindset method that I'm writing about. The CORE stands for C, being your challenge. O, what is the outcome that you want? R is always your reason, your why. And E is execution. What are the tools that you're going to pick up today for the life that you want? And those are not my words. And I love to give credit where credit is due. Those words, that was a question that this guy proposed on a podcast I was listening to. And his name is Tim Kite. And
Okay.
he is a fantastic mindset coach. And he coaches a program called Focus 3. And I might be getting that. I might be flubbing. Excuse me, Mr. Knight, if I screw that up, but you guys can look him up. Tim Kite, it's all over. And I remember listening to that podcast, and he asked, what are the tools you're going to pick up today for the life that you want? And I was like, oh, okay. For me, what was the tool that I was afraid to pick up? I tried everything. Sobriety.
Right.
Sobriety. Everything got better when I got sober. So
Absolutely.
that was the hard tool that I had to ask myself, what are you willing to pick up or put down? You know,
Right.
and that's what I had to do for the life that I wanted. And that's really what's given me the peace that I have today. And sobriety doesn't promise that you're not going to go through stuff. I've still gone through stuff, but
Of
I just
course.
I have better execution now.
Right. And your mindset and your just mental clarity, that's all lifted so you can just know how to, instead of going to the bottle, so to speak, you have other healthier ways of coping through hardships, because we all go through it. There's
Yeah.
ups and downs. That's just life. And I try to stress that on every pretty much episode, and everybody I talk to, like I tell my audience, this is not an overnight thing. It didn't happen overnight. It's not going to be a quick fix. This stuff takes work. And it comes down to that question of, well, how much do you love and care about yourself to change and do better for you? Because at the end of the day, you're showing up for you. You have to show up for you. And there's going to be days where it's going to be crappy. And there's going to be days where you're flying on rainbows and unicorns, and knowing how to handle what comes at you in a healthy way. That's the key to life. And it takes work.
Yeah. And, it's funny because everything that I did was so opposite of where I am now. I'm still the same person. Some things haven't changed. Like, I still love high intensity interval training and spinning, and I can't run as much anymore, but I'd love to get on the trail and do intervals on the soft, dirt versus pavement, and then power hike. Like, so everything was always quick and all at once. And I use that same mindset I had in my own workouts for like the way I handle everything. I'm a functioning alcoholic. It's like all or nothing, like,
right.
I want to get better from the precancerous breast cells that you found. What can I do to quickly get over that? Like and I don't regret that decision. I don't want it to sound like I regret it. For me, it was the right decision. And I'm not a day in my life regrets making that decision for me. But when it came to actually healing my heart and finding real peace and being able to listen to my intuition, I had to get rid of all the false truths that I was looking for the answers in. Like, the truth is, when people ask me, have you always known that you were an alcoholic? Yeah. When I picked up my first drink at 15, I knew right away, this is going to be a problem. And I love taking the opportunity and I don't want to make this all about this is not a 12-step meeting, but I just wanted people to know that when there's the red flags there and a young person, if a young person's listening to this podcast, listen to them, because the red flags were there for me and I didn't listen. And it is a disease of progression. And although I may have not drank often, when I did, it was dangerous. And by the grace of God, I am sober today. And it is because of my recovery program and the angels that walk on this earth, because I do, like you, I believe that there are no mistakes. There are no coincidences.
That's right. Sometimes life beats us off a path that we think we're supposed to be on. And then, you have all these curveballs thrown at you. And all of a sudden you're on a different path. And then you look back and you're like, whoa, I thought I was supposed to be this. And it turns out you're something so much more than you ever could imagine, because especially people that go through such hardships and just trauma in general, all these things, we turn that pain into purpose. And we try to educate others and pass the baton forward of like, hey, listen, this is what I went through. If I could prevent that from you going down that same rabbit hole, I'm going to do my part as a good human and pay it forward and share the things that worked and what didn't work. And we're all healers. We're all here to help each other. And people need to remember that. Like, we are, as a society, here to educate and help and be of service to others. So I love that.
And you'd ask,
I love that.
Courageous. And I love what you said about nothing happens overnight, and it's small steps. So, back when I was falling down the rabbit hole of depression, and mine was situational, where it was triggered by all the stuff that was happening, and I wasn't taking care of my mental health. Courageous one day looked for me like this: pulling over on the side of the road, calling a trusted girlfriend up and saying, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't do this anymore. And just crying, and her saying, I think you need to call your doctor. So that's a day that courageous looked like that for me. Today, courageous looks like me sitting on a podcast with you and talking to you. So you see, the journey's not linear, and it's big and small things. So for courageous, for a lot of people, and there have been days like this for me, courageous looks like getting out of bed. Literally getting out of bed and just taking a shower and meeting a friend for coffee and and not stringing too many days of isolation together, because we were joking off camera. I said, I love my alone time. I do. I love my alone time, but I'm not lonely. I'm not lonely. So, I have to be very careful of that, of not stringing too many days where I'm home or just hanging out and not connecting, because that's what my mother did. And she fell down that rabbit hole of isolation, and it was too deep, and she was too far into it. So that led to where she got to a place where she, passed from the final symptom of her very complex depression, and her final symptom was suicide. It's very, very complex. So I like to come from the preventative end and say there are a lot of courageous things that we can do to prevent from falling down that rabbit hole. And I only share what my story, because it's so complex, and I'm not a therapist and I'm not a psychiatrist.
Of course.
But I will share the things that worked for me, because sometimes they were simple and sometimes they were more complex. And that's what that next book is about. It's about some funny stories that have nothing to do with mental illness. And then it's about some short stories that do have to do with it. Like going to get my yoga teacher certification a year or so after my mom had passed. And, when I walked into that room, I remember everybody looked at me like, oh, I thought you already had your certification, because I taught like every class except for Zumba. I'm like, nope, because I was here searching for something, right? And one of those things was that brought me there was an injury, but we had to try to learn how to meditate. That did not come easy for me at all. So I write a little bit about that, and it's a hilarious journey in the Courageous book, because that is a tool now that has helped me, but it didn't happen overnight, and I had to practice discipline.
Yes.
Discipline.
Absolutely.
Small little steps. That's it.
Absolutely. And small steps lead to big goals. And, I always see too, because my viewers know my backstory too. I came from a toxic family background. And, for me personally, I went through all of this. Honestly, I completely cut out everybody in my life. So this was like a journey for me. And I had to build my family from scratch, podcasts, books, all these things. And then getting the effort to get out of bed every day, and knowing that small thing will eventually lead to bigger things, and having compassion for yourself too, while you're in this healing journey, that things are not supposed to be textbook. Healing looks different for everyone, but it's making the conscious decision that you are worthy of healing. And you are worthy and deserving of all good things.
Yeah.
And one small step leads to another step, which leads to a bigger step. And before you know it, you have this different persona about yourself of, whoa, I'm starting to see a pattern here. I'm getting up in the morning. I'm taking a shower. I'm getting dressed for the day. I'm meditating, even though it's hard.
Yeah.
I can agree with you on that. Like, I've been doing it over 4 years, and I still struggle with it, but it's process. It's the progress of doing these things to implement this self-care routine, not only physically, but mentally. It's trifecta.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it all starts in the brain. And people would say to me when I was a coach, because I don't really train as much anymore now. I have a few clients, but I'm on to other things. Loved that industry, and I still sub classes, and it'll always be part of me. It's such an important part of my life and who I am. But people would just assume, like, because I was a trainer and I taught fitness classes, like, you're so motivated. I'm like, eh. I'm like, I would take discipline over motivation any day. I mean, motivation's handed out that word. Like, it's even in when you read it, I was like, oh yeah, I actually I've been putting that on my list. Like, I got to tweak that in my bio, because yeah, I mean, I hope that some days we feel super motivated. It comes naturally, but most people it doesn't. I mean, there's been studies showing that most people, it's really habits that soon motivation will build, but it's really disciplined habits that create that motivation to get, to the reason why we do the things we want to do, right?
Absolutely.
So, especially when that alarm would go off at 5 a.m. and I was teaching at 6 a.m. That was the motivation getting me up.
Yeah. And a lot of coffee, hopefully, too.
Got a coffee alarm and the habit of okay.
I love this. I would love for you to maybe share some tips for my audience of what you have implemented as good daily habits to just, stay as sharp as you can, just creating those healthy habits of staying in a good mental space, whether or not you're 100% or, 50% for the day, but what overall do you implement in your life that's consistent?
I don't know if viewers can will hear my dog in the background, but she's one of them. My dog is
Uh,
she's
Aw,
like a child. She knows when I'm on a podcast. She's like, "Remember me? Remember me?" Yes,
that's
we
okay.
remember you. Um, no, but I would say first and foremost, my faith, my spirituality, and my foundation of my sobriety. So I won't go into details of like, there's a lot of different tools in sobriety. So I just pick up a tool that I have in my sobriety program. And then exercise, movement. In fact, I love using the terminology movement now more
Yes.
than even exercise, because sometimes people hear the word exercise, like, ooh, sometimes it's just a walk, but movement
Right.
is my medicine. It will put me in a better mood almost always, even if it's just a few minutes. So
Yep.
movement, lots of water.
Yes.
Truth be told, the hardest thing for me to do is to be really disciplined about my eating habits. That's very tough. But when I am, it does affect my mood. If I eat poorly several days in a row, I feel lethargic, I feel impatient. So that's a very, very important daily routine. And so, yeah, my sobriety, my faith, movement, uh, being mindful of my eating, and connections. Connections are huge, 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 huge. Even if you're home one
Absolutely.
day and it's a little text to somebody, connections are majorly important.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that because especially that everyone's gone through what we've gone through in the last few years here with the pandemic and you know I don't care about your political things like with no one. I don't care what you believe, but overall for everyone it was this mental like we were like what is going on and it left a lot of we were all alone. We were isolated from each other. And we as humans need authentic human connection.
Mhm.
There's a difference, I'm on Zoom all the time recording with all these guests, but there's a different sort of connection when you are face to face in the same room with another human being that you can hold and hug and interact. It's so different than this whole Zoom thing. Like we're all over the world spread out, we
Yeah.
were isolated, and that affected so many people on a mental level
Mhm.
of what is going on, what is, fear, all these things. And I think that really, in a way, it was almost a blessing in disguise, at least how I look at this, because I think a lot of people were able to really pause and really be honest with themselves and go within and go, okay, this is happening. I need to seek support from whatever that looked like for them, whether it was a therapist, a coach, a trainer. They found other ways to cope, some not healthy, some healthy. But I think it started this whole real seriousness for people of that mental health is a big deal.
It
We've
is. And,
always brushed it off.
I just want to, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to make sure that we make this point right now. It is our mental health care system is so overwhelmed and so underpaid that
Yes.
they are being bombarded by the aftermath of COVID and the effects that it laid on people and their mental health. It's always been an issue. This is nothing new, but now it's overwhelming because what was really, you know, maybe managed for some, people couldn't get their medicine. They
Right.
were they were looking at therapists on a camera, and for some it worked, for some it didn't. isolating, which we know is one of the number one causes of depression. So,
Absolutely.
or, I shouldn't say causes, but one of the number one issues that people have, when they become super depressed is, they found that they were isolating for some time.
Right.
So we got to pay our healthcare workers more. This is a field that my daughter is in. She, and I'm sure that everybody knows somebody that's in the healthcare system, our nurses, our psychiatrists, our therapists that are vastly underpaid and incredibly overworked. And more young people will get into that field if they knew they could pay their bills, because wouldn't everybody want to help? Of course they would. But unfortunately, when you're making a decision for what you're going to study in college, you also think, how am I going to pay my loans back? How am I going to pay my bills? And there are wonderful souls out there in the world that would love to get into a profession where they could really help somebody. And it's a scary time right
Absolutely.
now when we say we can't pay you enough.
Absolutely. And there's this brokenness in between, because I think a lot of people overall would accept the help, but there, because of everything else, because of just the way the world is today, people are scrambling to just pay their bills. So they take a back, they put it on the back burner as if, okay, I really want the help, but I can't afford it.
Yeah.
Because of everything else going on too. So there's this slippery slope where, professionals that are all sorts of, whether you go to the licensed mental health specialists, or you go to a psychiatrist, or you even go to a coach like myself or like you. I know you don't do it as often, but there's all levels of professional help out there that handle and specialize in these mental health situations, but a lot of people can't afford it.
What's
So
wonderful now
that's
that
the brokenness too of it. It feels like it's coming from both ends.
what's wonderful that's happening now, and I know in my community, was with this next book, I really wanted to pull in the reins and work with somebody more locally, and affiliate and align myself with a local nonprofit, which I have, which I don't want to announce yet because we're still working on it. But it's a nonprofit that they do, like most nonprofits, you have to do events to raise money to help whatever your nonprofit is. This is a counseling center, and they're opening up centers in several different communities in my area, in several different all over New England, and they are providing free mental health services to people who cannot afford it.
Oh, I love that.
And I know there's a lot of programs that are starting that are trying. There's a few that are online. I don't want to name any names, but you can look them up. So I know that there's services out there that are trying. And there's
I'm
in
right.
financial positions to be able to back those services up that are doing the right thing. So I really applaud those people.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I work with a company as well, that dramatically, like, my rates are dramatically cut because I want to help people. To me, it's not about money. Especially, I work with college students. Like, getting to our younger youth and just promoting this, like, literally it's like $25 an hour for college students for services from me personally. And there's tons of other professionals. There are people out there that are willing to help, that you don't have to, it's not this like, oh, they're probably fortune. No, like, there's people out there that are truly doing it for the right reasons too, and are giving back in such a way. So I love that. And I really hope that other companies pick up on this and spread that throughout our country, because every state needs this.
Yeah, every state and every country.
Absolutely.
It's
absolutely. Absolutely.
It's worldwide.
No, it's so true. It's so true. I mean, and that's not where, that's where things are not equaling up some of the time. It's like there's people out there that are really wanting to help, and then you have, the politics of it, and there's this no middle ground where, everyone should have equal opportunity to the same exact level of healthcare, especially mental health care, because it starts up here, and we all deserve to live good, healthy, happy lives.
Yes, we do. Me too,
Oh,
me
I
too.
can't wait. No, I love this, Valerie. I really do. And I'm so just inspired by all the things that you have done to build your support system and turn your pain into purpose and now beyond with this second book coming out. I'm super excited. I definitely have to have you back on the podcast once your second book drops.
I would
And I would
love
love
that.
to help you promote that because I love that something that you didn't even know. Like when you look back, it's like, wow, 3 years ago, like I found these journals and I didn't even know that this was going to be part of something. And that's just so
If you would,
humbling.
I'm telling you, if you would ask me, did you ever think you were going to be a writer? I'm like, heck no. And I would tease, like, I was probably the most underread writer when I first got started that you'd ever want to meet because I didn't have time. I don't have time to read. Now I read so many books. I listen to tons of Audible because I'm in the car a lot and I just can't get enough. And so we grow, we grow, we grow,
Absolutely.
and and it really is just when I look back, it's been 10 years since losing my mom this past spring. And, I hope I've made her very, very proud. I try to speak about her in a very respectful way because it is, you know, talking about the fact that she died by suicide. She's not here to tell me whether or not I can talk about that. I have no idea, but I've done a tremendous amount of praying about it. And when you read Shattered to the Core, you're gonna discover what a lovely, lovely, warm. Oh my gosh! If anybody ever had the pleasure of meeting my mother, they would say she was the most warm, giving, loving person you'd ever want to meet. So yeah, so we gotta pay attention to the people that are the givers, the people that are helping, the people that always say that they're fine, which I
Yes.
do not like that word, but that's anyways. But those are the folks sometimes you gotta, say they say check in with your strong friends, make sure that you're doing that because
That's
those are
right. And because often
yeah,
that's so well hidden. I mean, and you think of like these famous actors like Robin Williams and all these, will go to the celebrity status. You would never think. And that's why it's always like, don't judge a book by its cover. You have no idea
mhm,
what someone is going through deep down. And a thoughtful act can change someone's life. A smile, a kind word, a
mhm,
kind gesture. Like people really don't understand what people go through.
yeah,
And to judge a book by its cover and think, oh, well, that person's fine. Like, no, that's not we show people what we want to show them at the end of the day. No one knows really what goes on behind closed doors with all of us in all our lives. You can go on Facebook and see snapshots and think,
yeah,
oh, that person's life is perfect and have no clue what they're really going through. So I think, in a collective way, we all need to be a little bit more open-minded, a little bit more observant about who's around us and really take notice into going beyond the veil, so to speak, of what people show you on the outside. Like pay attention and really be there for the people that you can show up for and that show up for you and be mindful of these things and
be
help one
mindful
another.
and be mindful. And even if you're not emotionally equipped to offer help, at the very least, don't offer harm. You know,
Right.
um,
Absolutely.
I worked at a place that was very, very public and could be very, even as adults, very gossipy and whatnot. And I'd like to think that I didn't fall into that. I mean, we're human; we all gossip at points in our life. But I honestly can say that I make a conscious effort every single day not to do that or fall into that trap because it's been done to me. We've all had it done.
Of
We've all
course.
done it. And you know, just be kind. So if you have
Yes.
somebody in your life that you know that's struggling and you want to keep them at arm's length for whatever reason, that's okay too. Boundaries are okay, but don't be
Absolutely.
harmful.
That's
Don't be
right.
harmful, don't gossip, don't don't be mean.
Right.
There's still mean people out there, whether they're teenagers or adults. And
So
I'm not
true.
preaching. Like I said, I'm human. We've all fallen into those ugly times, but
Of course.
and let's do better. Let's all do better, because our words and our actions, they matter.
Yes, they do. I'd love to ask one more question before we close out of this amazing, amazing conversation. What would you give to my audience today as a piece of purposeful wisdom for them?
Purposeful wisdom. Oh gosh, I'm not a life coach. I really
Lisa, what is one thing of
I,
purposeful wisdom that you've learned
I
in your
do.
life?
I do. One purposeful wisdom I love. I'll quote my own self, actually.
Please
Um,
do.
when you cling to what you know, you miss the chance to grow.
Ooh,
And
hear that, people?
when you cling to what you know, you miss the chance to grow. So whether that's, growing up in a family that, were drinkers and you fell into that too, or whether your comfort zone is being a little catty and gossiping, right? Like we just talked
Right.
about. Can you do that? And like if you keep clinging to that, you're not gonna grow. You're not gonna grow.
No.
So when you
Got it.
cling to those icky things that those default, right? Because we all have those default
Oh,
characteristics,
yeah.
we miss the chance to grow. So think about one thing that you can get rid of that you're clinging to that's holding you back from growing. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. Like I love that. I love that so much. And I can't thank you enough for this today. You have been so amazing. I will put all your bios, everything, all your links. I will link to the book in my description so that my audience can purchase the book. And I cannot wait to have you back on the show so that we can promote your second one. I am
Yeah,
so
I'm just talking.
excited.
This has been really nice, Dawn. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. This has been amazing, Valerie. Thank you so, so much. You guys, thank you so much for being here today. It was such an honor to share Miss Valerie with you guys. And I will leave the book link in the description along with Valerie's social media, all her contacts. If you want to reach out to her about anything, my stuff will be in the description as always. Guys, I can't thank you enough so much today for a beautiful, beautiful discussion. And I will see you on the next episode. God bless you guys all. And I love you all so much. Thank you so much.